Hello and welcome to the Virtual Podcast. My name is Emily. I'm your host. Today I'm joined by Aaron Trotman, who is the founder of Non, which is a non-alcoholic drinks brand that is redefining how we look at traditional non-alcoholic drinks. Welcome.
Hi Emily, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming.
You're welcome.
I think this is a really exciting sector to look into in terms of how Non is approaching the non-alcoholic drink sector. A lot of the time you find that non-alcoholic drinks, and particularly non-alcoholic wines, just don't hit from a flavour profile perspective. Why do you think that Non is different?
So for us, we care about flavour a lot. That's why we build our facility. We don't outsource anything that we do. We employ chefs to make all of our drinks, and the DNA of the drink came from that world as well. So when I started the company, this style of drink you could only buy in a Michelin star restaurant or a hatted restaurant here in Australia, and they would make these non-alcoholic pairings in-house, but they would live and die in those restaurants. The meal was really expensive, probably had to wait a long time to get into them, and just couldn't buy that style of drink or standard of drink in a bottle. And I was like, why can't you do that? And I was like, oh, that feels like a good idea. So we'll do that. And from when we first made it in a 20-litre pot to a 15,000-litre tank now, it's still exactly the same principles. We haven't changed our ethos. We cook every ingredient, we prepare it all ourselves, and then we take a lot of time and effort and care into building layers of flavour with experts, essentially.
Okay, so what goes into a bottle of Non? Where did it start? What was your first batch like, and did it actually taste as good as the product that we can have now?
So the first batch, when we first took it out on the road, I took it to Leonardo's, and there was a few heavy hitters from the hospo scene there, and they were like, what have you been working on? And I was like, I actually don't even know anymore if it's any good, so can you just try it? And I remember I wanted to sit in the car because I was like, oh, I don't think I can handle this. I've sunk so much money into the branding and everything of this already. I don't think I could handle the rejection. And I tasted it and I'm like, oh, this is cool, man. Oh, you should go talk to Chase at Omai, and you should go see the guys at the Alps. I was like, oh, okay. So I went out to Omai straight afterwards, and Chase was like, yeah, how many got in the car? We need for service tonight. We hate making these drinks. They're the worst. And I was like, I didn't know any of this at the time. Nick, who's our liquid lord, head of beverage now at the facility out in Cheltenham, he was actually at the first tasting. He was working at Leonardo's. He just left eau de vie. And he's like, this is shit, dude. And I was like, okay. But now he makes it. The product is significantly better than when it was when we first made it. But that's happened with consistency of ingredients, being able to buy things in season, preserving them, not with preservatives, but through techniques. So whether it be freeze drying, dehydration, or any of those sorts of things. So we've never sacrificed on quality or our sources of getting the products that we need for the liquid.
So what are the main ingredients that kind of make up the base of the drinks, first and foremost? Yeah,
so the alcoholized wine has a single ingredient, it's grapes. So to make it really simple, or the way I think about it, is if you have white cabbage, plain, it's not very exciting. If you ferment it and turn it into sauerkraut, it's delicious and quite interesting. Now, if you try to strip away fermentation, it lands somewhere in the middle and you're kind of in no man's land.
Right.
So non-alcoholic beer has multiple ingredients, so you can tune things up and down to get profiles, change flavors, and do all those sorts of things. So for us, we look at it and get ingredients where we're always looking for fruit, tannin, salt, and acid component, and that's what a sommelier would come over to your table and say, hey, you know, it's got notes of leather and apricot and whatever else they might say. So we always have the acid as the base, which is Verjus, which comes from the Barossa Valley. It's a blend of Semillon and Chardonnay grapes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a salinity component in it, whether it be salt or sometimes it might be olive brine, it might be tamari or soy sauce, depending on what sort of umami that we want in the drink. And then there'll be a technique involved. So it might be dehydrating oranges to get a clean candied orange flavour. It wouldn't be orange juice. Otherwise, the product would be orange as well, like the product that we have here with Non-3, or raspberries for the fruit, but freeze-dried and cold extraction. So you're not cooking any of the flavour out. You start to use too much heat, you start to go above and beyond where you want to be in the first place.
Okay.
And then tannin usually comes from, well, fruit skins. You can get some tannin, but you also get it from spice and teas as well. So teas have a lot of tannin. So if you've ever left your tea bag, a black tea bag in for too long and it's really dry and astringent, that's tannin. So that's kind of how we look at it and the way we structure the drinks.
So I'm a wine wanker. I've actually done my WSET.
Ooh,
yes, I know not to flex, but I have. For those who don't know what a tannin is and how it affects the palate, can you explain that a little bit?
So tannin's astringency. So it's the thing, the simplistic way that I think about it is it dries you out in here, essentially. And that's what wine does. So if you have a big old Barossa Boomer juice, it's going to dry you out because of all the Shiraz. And that's a big old tannin bomb is what I would call it. And that's a simple way. But then if you like something like a Pinot and it's a little bit lighter and juicier, there's less tannin in it, and that's because the juice can shine. Is that what you would say if you've done a Wesset?
I would say such a thing. Right. I would. I feel like this is probably the best time for us to taste the product. Sure. Let's just go through a little tasting profile, shall we?
Yes.
Let's see what we've got. So what am I working with here?
So this is still, it's an aromatic white wine alternative. So wine alternative is it's not designed to be like a wine, but it has the structure of wine. And it's an alternative because you'd have it in place of a white wine. So this has got dehydrated orange. So we make an orange stock for this. So it's about 65 degrees and we cook it for about 6 hours. So that pulls out all the clean candied orange flavour, all the tannin that we want, oils from the skin, and some bitterness from the pith of the orange. There's some yuzu juice in here, so that comes from Japan. It's the best place to get it. We distill cinnamon in water, so when you put a big aromatic spice into water, you can actually get an extraction. It doesn't work for everything. It could work for fennel seed, star anise it works. Basically, you're making, they call it a hydrosol or cinnamon-flavoured steam, essentially. And then we've got the Verjus component, so that's a Semillon Chardonnay blend, and then some Murray River salt as well. So this is designed to be easily drank with a white protein, so fish or chicken, or anything like a citrus salad or in Japanese food or something like that. It's quite light and refreshing.
It's super refreshing. And you can really smell the yuzu, which I love. It's like one of my favourite ingredients.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah. And then for us as well, it's important to have an uninspected finish, so then you're taking someone on the journey somewhere else rather than a place where they're comparing it or thinking this is a replica or this hasn't quite hit the spot. So it's unique to us. So
what was the feedback the first time that you released a batch of this to the general public?
It went really well from the start. The initial feedback from the first crew was the salt was probably a bit too high and you probably couldn't have drank a whole bottle. Tuned that up pretty quickly, but we got into great venues and great countries right from the get-go. So from Black Hearts and Sparrows to PMV, Anthony Maker Amanga had it.
We had Anthony on the podcast, actually.
Yes, that's why I brought it up. Well, he introduced us, actually.
He did. Good man.
And, from Key to Supernormal and those places had it on since we launched and been great supporters. So the flavour's probably always been okay if it's good enough for those places.
So how did you go about getting into these different venues to begin with?
Probably a bit of dumb luck and a cool product and cool branding, to be honest with you. Everyone was like, well, what is this and why are you doing it? And, oh, no, that's cool. Like, we'll get around this. So it kind of, Guy Bentley at Leonardo's was like, hey, here's my friend here, here's my friend there. They're like, oh, you should meet that person. Hey, these people would really like this. And it just, hospitality feels kind of small like that. And I think I just got lucky and I think the product was good and interesting enough that taste leaders and thought makers were like, yeah, let's get around this.
So you started in Melbourne, obviously.
Yes.
In terms of distribution, how wide have you grown out to now?
So we've got Australian coverage. We're in New Zealand. We went into Singapore and Japan in year one.
Wow.
So we launched in July 2019. COVID hit in March when we just signed our first distribution deal, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do with all this stock? And then it just sold out. And then the guy from Japan hit me up, and he was like, hey, can we get it? Sold out before I got there. Singapore sold out before I got there. And I was like, what's going on here? And then we're in Hong Kong. We're in the US, where the US is a big focus for us as well. And we've just recently gone into the UK this year. And we're probably doing Thailand, Korea, China, starting them this year as well, later in the year. Well, it's already later in the year, but later in the year.
For such a young company, that's huge to get into so many different countries, beg your pardon, and into so many different demographics, I think, as well. Because it's obviously non-alcoholic drinks, traditionally the way that you think about them is they're a bit bland, a bit boring, and it's generally speaking, it's similar to wine, but it's just the alcohol removed, and it's not nice. And this is what I fear one day when I do have to give up alcohol because I've decided to have a baby. And I love a drink, I do. And I think that for me, when I have tried the non-alcoholic wines and Prosecco's that my friends bring over to my house, inevitably, it's awful. And I don't understand how we're in this place that these products are still being sold, and why they're not kind of looking at your model in terms of looking at alternative ingredients that make the drink more interesting or more well-rounded, more drinkable. And why do you think that is? Why is it traditionally that people have just been almost a bit lazy with the products?
I don't think it's lazy. I think there's tradition and technicality around the production techniques. So the spinning cone technology that de-alcoholizes wine or centrifuge, and then if it's missing something, all you can add to it is sugar. So then you throw the balance out with de-alcoholized wine. They've now started using flavor houses to do fake tannin and other fake flavors, fake oak. You can get all those and buy them in drums, essentially. Oh. But what we've built is a facility for us with people that use real products and real ingredients, and it's incredibly expensive and it's incredibly technical as well. And we have nothing to hide. We have the facility open. You can come down, and if you want to take photos, take it. You're either going to steal our idea or it's going to put you off. I've always had the mantra of, and so far so good.
Yeah, right. So how big is the total addressable market growing to year by year at the moment?
I feel like I see new stats all the time. And it depends on what you're looking at for the total addressable market. So if you look at people that don't drink, it's big, but it's probably not really what to go after, I don't think. What to go after is making a drink for people who do drink. So someone like you've done your wine course, and you're like, wow, this is delicious. I could actually see myself having this with food. Mm-hmm. So, and it's for those people that are, changing the way they drink, or it's a school night or whatever it is, or there's a work lunch, and you're like, that's where it's all changing, and that's the thing to go after. So if you look at that, it's billions and billions of dollars. If you look at just the recent data, they're saying it's going to be about 40 billion by the end of 2030 of the size of the market for non-alcoholic products. And then 80% of people that drink now also buy non-alcoholic products as well.
Okay.
So it's not uncommon in the US, for example, in San Francisco, bottle shops are saying if we don't have non-alcoholic products, we'd be out of business.
Interesting.
But in New York, they're not allowed to sell non-alcoholic products in licensed places. They've still got a law from Prohibition that never got changed.
What?
Yeah. So if you can't buy a gin and the tonic in the same shop in New York. So you have to go to the bodega. So it's a grocery versus the liquor lobbying against each other. But beer you can sell everywhere.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. So what's happening is wine, the liquor and the wine focused people are going, we need non-alcoholic products, and groceries going, well, you need to give us wine. And they're like, we're not giving you wine, you just give us non-alcoholic. And it just adds up at a deadlock backwards and forwards the whole time. And they're like, we're going to go out of business if we don't get non-alcoholic products into the store because of the way people are coming in and shopping now.
Yeah, right. That's so interesting. I never considered that as a factor. So obviously you've got these big, beautiful bottles that, you know, you'd take somewhere and, you know, share. Do you envision that the brand is going to go into single serve cans or smaller bottles, anything like that?
So we could. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think what I believe, not what I think, is that if someone's a vegan and they come to your house, you don't give them a different plate if they're eating something different. So if someone's not drinking, they should have the same glassware, they should have the same size of the bottle, and it should be the same experience. You shouldn't feel smaller or lesser.
Yeah.
So why, and with those beliefs, I don't think a can works for that at the moment because, you know, you're just opening it, you can smash it, or like I don't think if you're sitting in a restaurant and someone gets poured out a can in front of you, like how fancy do you feel, you know?
The least.
Yeah. So we do have half bottles that are sitting in the warehouse, but they're not for the on-premise and the off-premise. They're for hotels.
Are we thinking goon bags anytime soon?
Into what?
Goon bags.
Bags.
Like a box wine.
I had that in a marketing deck from years ago.
I've seen it done with a new wine brand. So they're taking really, really beautiful wines from winemakers around the country and putting it into limited edition boxes. Mm-hmm. And the branding in itself, I'm a sucker for branding. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. Comes across
Australian?
really nicely. They are Australian. I'll have to find it for you.
Yeah.
But I could envision something like Non in that. And so you keep it in your fridge whenever you want a glass. It's there at all times, and it keeps its freshness.
Yeah.
And I think for the economy that we live in, if you're going to be having something on a regular basis but you only want a glass or two at a time rather than opening a whole bottle, it's an interesting sector to go into. I can imagine it working.
Yeah, for sure. I remember what I called the baby shower box. But but yes, I agree with you, and that's why we made our stopper. So the product doesn't oxidize, so it's completely fine in the fridge for up to 7 days.
Can you show us the stopper?
I can. I've got to go around the So, yeah, that's the stopper. We just won a Good Design Award for it.
Ooh.
There's no mechanical parts, so it can't break. And it's just a simple on and off. You can take it to the park, it won't leak. You can roll around your car. Like, if you think about all the spring sparkling stoppers, they pop off very easily. This doesn't do it.
I love this.
Yeah, so
I need to get my hands on one of this.
Yeah, well, that's easily arranged. And yes, back to the box wine. I think it's a great idea. I know of a few people doing it. There's one out of the US or Canada, AMI. They're doing a really great job of it. And I think it's great for the environment. For us, we could do it with some products. We can't do it with it all because some are carbonated.
Okay.
So the bag will blow up.
So at the moment, in terms of your product range, how many different products do you have?
So in our core range, we have 3 that we focus on. There's a 4th that's kind of just sitting, about to jump into the core range. So that's our salted raspberry and chamomile, our yuzu and cinnamon, which we just had. our stewed cherry and coffee, and then our lemon marmalade and hibiscus is about to jump into the core range.
Beautiful.
Then we have seasonal expressions. So we used to make them all year round, but even though you use natural products and it's completely fine in wine, for the vintage to be totally different, we were never afforded the same rules.
Oh my
so
goodness,
everyone was just like, well, it's inconsistent. It's like, it's natural produce. Like, what do you want us to do? So anyway, we've wanted to focus on the things that we could scale.
Okay.
And also they clearly led to an occasion. So salted raspberry and caramel was there for the rosé moment. This was here for the white moment, and then stewed cherry and coffee for a sort of darker Pinot moment.
Okay. So while we're on the topic,
Yes.
should we go through the slightly darker one?
Yeah, sure. So this is a limited edition that we did with Chef Matt Stone. So he's a part owner in Chow Mate in Bangalore, U Beauty and the Eltham Hotel.
Wow.
Legend, one of my best mates. And we've been talking about doing something together for years, and we finally did it. And we made this, so it's got a lot of Australian natives in it. So there's blood plum, Davison plum, there's finger limes. A lot of restaurants get the caviar from the finger lime, but they don't actually use the skin, they discard it. So companies will produce that for them. So we've got frozen finger lime skins, which would have been waste. We turn it into an oleo, and then we smoke that with some paper bark in the combi oven. There's some verjus, some salt in here, and then a lot of tannin comes from the cinnamon myrtle in the drink as well. So yeah, we only made 300 cases of this, and it's pretty much all sold out.
Wow.
So
I'm
that's
feeling
been
quite
pretty
special then.
Yeah.
It smells beautiful. You can really smell like the smoke coming through.
Yeah, and for us, we've always had the drinks fairly cold and chilled, and this is the first time that the drink actually works better, a little bit
Warmed up.
sort of Chardonnay temperature, not Pinot temperature. Just a touch. Yeah, it opens up a little bit. So.
Yeah. So in terms of a sustainability perspective, obviously you've got the opportunity to use fruits that aren't necessarily perfect in terms of visuals, and you're using discard, like the rind of a finger lime. How much does that mean to you when you're looking at flavor versus sustainability versus consistency? Where do you draw the line on what's the priority?
Yeah, great question. So we had an expression which was tomato, water and basil. We don't produce it anymore. But we originally used tomatoes that were pretty close to being done. And the issue was with us and food grade products, because it's technically a food because there's no alcohol in it, is that especially a tomato, when they start to go, they get moldy really quickly. Mm-hmm. So whether it's misshape or whatever, we can definitely use it 100%. But can we use something that's about to be thrown away because it's gone past its sweet spot? No, we can't. In the case of the finger lime skins, they're being used and frozen basically straight away. So they're completely safe and consumable. And we have regulations that we have to stick by and make sure that we're doing all cross checks and making a safe product for humans to consume, essentially. So we are really careful with it. If it was ugly fruit, 100%. Totally fine, as long as it's not starting to turn, then we can definitely use it.
Okay.
And in terms of when we're finished with it, we've ripped all the flavour out of it, everything goes to compost. And then, we try to do as much as we can with what we do, but we don't really go through much. We've got some paper on the labels. We've got a glass bottle. We're going to change our pallet wrap into Great Wrap, which is a compostable.
Awesome.
Pallet wrap. So we do the best that we can.
Absolutely. And from a longevity perspective, how long is the shelf life for products, and do you use preservatives?
So we don't use any preservatives. We did, but we've found process and methodology. So when we heat it up, we pasteurize it. So that's over 65 degrees. And then all you need to do is drop that temperature as quick as possible. So you remember in food tech at school, there was the food danger zone?
Yes.
You've got to get out of that really fast. So we use We use a cooling unit to do that. So we go from 65 to 4 degrees straight away, and then it goes into a jacketed, cooled tank. Once it's transported to bottling and it goes into bottle, the product's completely safe.
Right.
So, yeah.
So as a business founder, is hospitality or food and beverage what you've always been doing, or is this a relatively new sector for you? And did you imagine that you would actually find a business like this?
Yeah, I think like being like a Melbourne guy, you're always like, yeah, I could own a cafe. I did that. That's a whole other story. But so when I left school, I started physiotherapy.
Oh, significantly different.
Yeah, and I was like, this is awful. I'm not staying doing this. So then I got a really respectable job of being a DJ for 10 years.
The most.
So I did that. But that's where I started to intertwine with hospitality.
Okay.
I met Miranda, my wife. She was like, you're not doing this anymore. And I was like, yeah, fair enough.
I respect that.
I was like, I don't really want to do it anymore either. So then I was like, what am I going to do? So I started like a hipster men's grooming line.
I could see that for you, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that didn't go very well, and I lost a lot of money, but I learned a lot.
Good.
And then at one point we had about 6 barbershops as well. And then I was working on a more female-focused cosmetics line in tandem, and then I thought of this, and then that just became it. So, and then COVID, I got bored and wanted a sandwich shop in my house. So I built a sandwich shop, which is Stan's Deli.
You're kidding.
And RIP.
I mean, look, I would never knock back a sandwich, obviously, but when you've got a brand that's been as successful in such a short space of time as Non, obviously you're going to throw everything at it, including the kitchen sink, which I suspect at one point got a real workout.
Yeah, I threw a lot of shit at the wall and something finally stuck.
So what was the biggest learning curve for you when starting a brand like Non, and what was the biggest mistake that you made, and what did you learn from it?
The biggest learning from me just being that lone wolf, kind of just trying to figure things out and never having a job, was team and culture. That's been the hardest thing for me. As we've grown and hired more people and brought more people into the team, I really started to struggle with it last year. I was like, I found out a good friend of mine got diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and I was like, I'm so similar to you. So anyway, I went and got tested, lit up the switchboard, got both. But that was really helpful because I was able to manage my team, and it's made my life significantly easier. I know what my superpowers are, and I know what my weaknesses are as well, and things that I just have to deal with. So that's been the hardest thing. My biggest regret and mistake would have to be probably people again. I think it's just hiring the wrong people or keeping the wrong people around for potentially too long. I hear this all
the time.
Yeah, so you just need to move fast. It's just move. The only person that thinks about it and cares about it and lives and breathes it is you, the founder. And then you have those expectations on everyone else, and then you get really upset and disappointed when they let you down. And the only person I believe that will truly keep on growing with the business as it forms and changes is the founder, and that's why founders get backed.
Yeah.
Because everything's on the line.
Totally.
It's got that grit and tenacity that you need. And it's fine to outgrow people within the business and go, hey, you've done a great job to get us to here, but that's not the next step. And we don't have the ability in-house as a startup to train you or take you to that next step, or the spare capital to potentially do any coaching or mentorship sort of thing. So, and then I just think, just keeping those people around if things are wrong for too long, it just manifests, go somewhere else. And someone called him a cultural assassin to me, and I'm just like, you just got to be careful of that.
That's brilliant. I think that's often the key for small businesses and startups is hire fast and fire fast, because you are trying to scale at such a rapid pace. if you're taking too long to hire somebody, there's a problem. It's a waste of time. And similarly, if you're keeping somebody around who is infecting the rest of the team, if they're the bad apple, it's going to have such a detrimental effect that's going to take a really long time to actually come back from. And it's a mistake that I think a lot of people make when they're starting a business for the first time, and it's really hard to come back from. Do you feel as though you're at the point now with the business that you've got this strong core team and that's what's propelling you forward?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got the right people in the right places. The function of the business have the skill sets that they need. You don't need everyone that knows how to make a liquid in operations. You need someone that knows how to nail spreadsheets, but you get there eventually, and that's fine. Again, like, you can outgrow people and you can get there. As you have more money, you can hire people that are paid more.
Yeah.
Of course. And then you go, if you've gone through some people that were great, some people that weren't great, or some people just left because they moved on to another challenge or whatever it is, you also go, I like that. It's just like dating, right? You're like, oh, you see that bad thing coming, like, get out of there, right? Like, you can see it a little bit quicker. And then as you get better, you can see that in the interview process as well. Your interview process, you streamline, you get better at screening resumes, all those sorts of things as well. So,
for sure.
I'm not sure that answered the question. But
No, absolutely you did.
Okay.
So what's next for Non? Where do you see it going in the next year, 2 years, 3 years? What's the vision?
So right now it's to keep on increasing our market share in Australia, and also being on more menus, giving people the option that don't want to drink. All that's going to happen is the latest data is 1 in 4 people don't drink in restaurants now. It'll be 2 in 4 soon, and we're there for it. The US is absolutely a focus right now. We're starting to get really great traction there. So we proofed out California with our distributor there. We just got into the Chase Center in San Fran for the whole NBA and NHL season.
Huge.
Yes, crypto arena's happening as well. Larvo in Vegas, and then we've got really great restaurants there as well, like the French Laundry, Alinea, Cran. So we're increasing our distribution to Illinois, Texas, Miami as well, and then obviously Nevada and Vegas. So it's that, and then getting the UK right too. So it looks like Selfridge is pretty much happening now. So,
incredible.
So we'll have that all sorted out, and some other great retailers there, and then just continue to get all the great restaurants that we want. For me, over the next 3 to 4 years, it's about sustainable brand building and generating a lot of value.
Okay.
And getting the interest of someone to, hopefully we get to stay, take it to the next step as well.
Great.
And just raise some capital in between just to get that last little bit over the line.
So obviously you've grown very quickly and you've gone a long way in terms of the distribution of the brand. With that comes a lot of risk. It's hard to kind of, I think, navigate that for a lot of new businesses, but how do you find that you mitigate risk that comes up in the business?
You kind of just got to go for it as small as possible, be willing to eat the mistakes that you make, and then get your learnings in really quick and expand them as fast as you can as well. So it might be the wrong distributor or in a new market, or we self-import into the UK and the US. So from doing it in the US, we learned in the UK that we wanted to go in first ourselves. We'll set the company up, we'll distribute it in ourselves, we'll send a container, you have that money sitting there, and then we can get a better distributor. So there's different ways of doing it. So in terms of mitigating risk, you can't get everything. It just has to feel more right than wrong, and then just go for it.
And from a statistics perspective, how have you grown from year to year in terms of revenue, bottles sold, people trying it, those kinds of stats?
So from the start of the business, we've now sold 4 million glasses of Non. I think in total we've sold about 50,000 cases. That's a 9-litre case on drinks. They're talking about a 9-litre case, which is 12 750ml bottles. Year one, I can't remember the actual number, but I think we did about 600 in revenue. Then we went to 1.2. Then we got stuck at 1.2, and that sucked. But then we doubled it, and then this year we're going to double that again as well. So we're at 111% growth as at today.
That's huge.
Start of October in 2024. So we're on track to be a 20,000 case brand this year, which is significant. It's not insignificant, with barely any chain stores. So globally, we're only in 125 Dan Murphy's stores. Well, we just went into vintage cellars, but that's all we've been at.
Okay.
So the upside for us is ginormous still when you've got 2,000 Whole Foods and the rest in the US.
Yeah, it feels like the sky's the limit, and it feels like you're on the precipice of something really, really exciting.
Yeah, it's just about to go.
Yeah, literally about to blow up. Does
Just
it make you a bit nervous?
To get over the line. Nah, it's good because it's like we know everything. We don't know everything. You're never going to know anything, but we know enough now that it's just like cool. The foundation is there. What we're doing is working. We're growing. It's almost like what cost can we potentially cut? Because what's it actually delivering? We're more looking at it from that point now, and how can we improve that? And sometimes that's the harder bit. I think about it kind of like, if you think about a music producer, they'll sit there forever just changing the sound of the kick drum. You and I won't be able to hear it, but they can hear it. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference. And we're at that point now, I believe. It's just the fine, really, really fine tuning little bits now. And then just nuance in markets. So we might say something in New York that doesn't land in San Francisco, that doesn't land in LA, because they're totally different. Australia is kind of easy like that. But then, Japan's just a whole other thing altogether.
So how important is voice of customer in developing new products for new markets?
I saw this clip from Noel Gallagher not long ago where he said, fuck the consumer, they don't know what they want. and he was like, the consumer didn't want Jimi Hendrix. They got Jimi Hendrix. That's what he talks about in the clip.
Yeah.
And it's like, if fashion stayed the same every year and listened to the consumer, nothing would change. The colours of seasons wouldn't change, all those sorts of things.
Right.
So the reason why I brought that up is because I don't fully agree with it. I think there's market feedback and what the market needs in our own unique way. But I definitely believe that if I listened to what that was at the start, no one was asking or wanted the product that we make in the first place, and it wouldn't exist. Mm-hmm. Neither would other people's businesses that we've helped enter into this category.
Right.
Or helped businesses drive innovation or leveling up flavor quality for other products or brands. So there's a little bit in it, and there's a little bit of like feedback for sure.
Like the salt content?
Sorry?
The salt content you said at the beginning?
The salt content?
There's too much salt in your first original batch?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, there's that, but also everyone's like, we need a still red. You know, it's like, okay, cool. Well, let's go and do that. But the market's changing and developing so much as we're growing with it and pushing it as well. You know, we're a catalyst for it too. It's 5 past midnight still, but the opportunity is ginormous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder as well, you know, you're in a particular category at the moment. Do you envision that you might transfer into other categories, like the non-alcoholic beer space or anything like that?
Yeah, so through our process and the way we think about drinks and look at ingredients, we've made them in our way, but we haven't entered into those categories. It's incredibly important to stay focused and not lose sight of this unless it could be vertically integrated, like it was an aperitif and it sold more of your hero product or something. Sure, maybe you'd go and do it. For us to get to our business objectives and goals, though, we can do it with what we have and stay super focused, not confuse our customers, not confuse any consumers, and be what we are. We are a wine alternative. It's great to go with food. It's much easier to say that than we're a wine alternative and we're an aperitif and we make beers as well, and we want to be a bit of everything, and we're not for anything of anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in terms of a marketing perspective, how do you go about making people aware that you exist?
I think that restaurants and stores will always be still your best storefront and shop window.
Okay.
And the credibility of the places that you're in is always going to be the key. So consumers will try you there, and then they might have a really good experience, then they look you up. And then you have, if you do great brand moments, you'll get press, you'll be in roundups, all those sort of things happen as well. So you can obviously have a PR strategy as well. And there's obviously digital too, but digital's really the Wild West and pretty hard to navigate right now.
Believe you me, that's something I deal with every single day.
Okay.
And it's tricky. It's very tricky.
Yeah, I think the way AI is going will be very interesting in the digital space.
Absolutely.
To be helpful. Yeah.
I hope so, because I personally love it now. I hope it only gets better. Fingers crossed. In terms of brand partnerships and collaborations that you've had since conception, what have been the most proud moments that you've had?
So our first brand collaboration was one with Maison Balzac.
The glassware.
Yeah. So we did a
Beautiful.
tube. We made a flavor. It was mandarin and thyme, I think. And then they made a candle that paired with it.
Stunning.
Yeah. Came in this like really nice white tube. So that was the first one we did, and that was really cool to do. And then we really had to knuckle down as the business started to take off and focus on getting the core range super consistent, super stable, and scaling up and getting sorted for that. So we hadn't done a collaboration for ages until we just did one with Matt. Been really great to do one with Matt because now we have a blueprint to do them with other people or other restaurants. So we've got some very solid conversations in the pipeline.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely buzzing to see where you go next and what you can achieve. It feels like we're so close to this just exploding around the world. And honestly, I wish you all the best. This is bloody delicious, if I do say so myself. And that's coming from someone who loves a drink. So congratulations with what you've achieved.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming to chat to me today.
Of
It's
course.
been such a pleasure.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it.